Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. This tour spotlight on the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the St. Mary of the Assumption Cemetery, located in Northampton, Mass. So, tell us about the history of the cemetery.
It started in 1890, the year for first burials and also of concentration of the cemetery that is made holy by the Bishop of the Springfield Catholic Diocese. It's found on Haydenville Road, and it's a nice little cemetery. It slopes upwards. There's a home in the back of the cemetery on its own access road. They must share the same driveway going in. And you have to say St. Mary's of the Assumption Cemetery because in Northampton there is a St. Mary's Cemetery. Now, this cemetery is the one that it's in Leeds, Massachusetts, but it belongs to a church that is in the next town over, right, of Williamsburg, and especially in the Haydenville section of Williamsburg. Okay, now we're going to talk today about how the parish itself is integrated well into the community and into the cemetery, and also about some interesting gravestones, because there's some that don't make sense to me very much, and also whether there's special sections in this Catholic cemetery like there are in many Catholic cemeteries, including a priest circle, a baby section, or a potter's field, and anything else that will come up.
And how does the cemetery relate to the church community?
All right. Now, the community itself is a parish, and then they go to the church at St. Mary's of the Assumption, and there they have a social hall, a rectory, and it's in another community, so they use this cemetery here as their own. Now, they had at one time a St. Mary's honor roll, a big board made of a background of white, and it's honor roll of all the people from St. Mary's Church that were in the World War, the First World War specifically. And there you have a big board with, I think I would call it about 72 names are on it, and two of them, as far as I can figure, are women. They probably were nurses. Others are officers, as at least one officer, Corporal Raymond Gambian. Many are privates, of course. And two of them are reverends. They probably went to the First World War as chaplains, which were officers that already had gone off to religious school, college, and then religious school for 4 years plus 4 years. And then they had to go to officer school for about 3 more months to learn how to be an officer and how to be a chaplain. And also, believe it or not, how to shoot a gun for their own safety. And so Frederick J. Halloran and Reverend Edward Wallace are the two from St. Mary's of the Assumption Church that went off to World War I. Other names include Irish names, French-Canadian names, and there's a few more officers, sergeants, corporals, a bugler, Leo Talbot, and then many, many privates. Philbert Burdett, probably from Quebec, and many names, of course, are Irish, John Dunphy. And the two women are Anna Kearney and Mary Lenehan. All right, so you might think that 1916, 17, 18, there might be a few Polish, and there are. There's John Demersky and Alexander Demersky. Okay, so you had many people from this parish going off to the war. And when they didn't have a space for this board at the parish itself, they brought it out to the maintenance building at the cemetery and affixed it there. And that's a great sign. That's a sign that the parish, the community itself, is very strong. They want to keep up on their history and preserve their artifacts, and it's great to see that there.
And really quick before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And for private tours or other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun, educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So, are there any interesting gravestones that you wish to tell our listeners?
I told you that the birth of the cemetery was 1890, which means, oh sure, there might be a few stones before that. And thus, I was quite surprised. I went over to the right side of the cemetery. On the opposite side of the roadway, which is already close to the woods, and there I found a Mary, wife of James Spearman, died May 13th, 1873. Right, and then Edward Spearman died October 6, 1887. All right, and then I did find one Margaret Spearman on a stone, died in 1901. Is this a cenotaph for the first two? It's very hard to see. And then behind that, in the woods, I found a stone that said Alfred Bolak, died 1914. And it was in such a place, isolated from everything else, that you would think, was this a suicide person that they had to put in an obscure part of the cemetery, where Catholics didn't put them in the body of the cemetery in most cases, and they even had to have permission to put them in obscure parts of the cemetery. So I looked it up, and it didn't say his death was suicide. So it was in a very strange place, though. And then in the back middle, there was another obscure place, down a gully, and then up a little mound, and it said J. Evans, and another one just a cross on it, and then another one that said Anthony Seacup, 1912. They were all in the weirdest places, nowhere near the body of the cemetery. So I have a mystery on my hands, and when I have a mystery, I usually hope to solve it and use all tools I can that genealogists and local historians have. I want to figure out what's going on with at least 6 names here and possibly one more with that weird cross, a gravestone. So I have a lot on my hands I want to solve.
And is there a pre-circle, baby section, or potter's field here?
I couldn't find any of those, and I asked the superintendent. He said there's no baby section, and he knows them. And that is strange, too, because starting in 1890, they didn't do away having baby section on their own till 1930, when cremations became quite prevalent. So in that 40-year gap, there must be some babies. I just haven't found it yet, and I walked the whole cemetery. And in terms of pre-circle, that itself, too, is hard to find. But not every Catholic cemetery has a pre-circle. And the reason why pre-circles only develop when you have very old cemeteries, or if you have a very exceptionally beautiful cemeteries. Old means that a lot of the founders were buried there, founder pastors. Beautiful because a lot of pastors love beautiful cemeteries and want to be buried inside those. I did find one stone that was of Jesus and a child, but I couldn't find any names on it. Maybe that's something to do with a statue. It used to be inside maybe the church, or on the church yard of St. Mary's Assumption church itself. And as for Potter's Field or Poppers, maybe those 2 sections that I found mysterious, they are Potter's Fields. Hard to tell. And what's with this very strange, tiny stone with no inscription except one cross on it? All right, that was unusual too. So there's a lot of mysteries I want to solve, and I usually keep at it until I solve these little mysteries. And remember, this is the only Catholic cemetery that served all of Williamsburg. And so you're going to have all three ethnic groups that these great immigrant waves from 1850 to 1920 had: the Polish, the Irish, and the French Canadians. So you find all three groups in this cemetery. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of our other podcasts on his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you for tuning in.